Mexico's Autodrama Hermanos Rodriguez has once again produced an eventful and controversial race this past weekend, but the championship battle continues on, at least on paper. There's also the USGP to preview and some interesting penalties to review from the past few weeks. Formula One Grid Talk podcast is powered by F1 Chronicle. Visit f1chronicle.com for news, reviews, and opinions on all things F1. Hosting today will be me, George Howson, and joining me are sports journalist Louis Edwards.
Hello.
Engineering student Owain Medford.
Hello.
And F1 expert Alex Booth.
Hello.
Welcome to the show, Alex. Thank you for joining us.
That's a pleasure.
So, fair to say, an eventful race in Mexico. If you haven't heard the results already, what are you doing watching or listening to this? I don't know. But Lewis Hamilton ended up claiming, I think it's fair to say, a big surprise of a win, Owain. I don't think many people would have backed him to win this one.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't see him winning it sort of even 20 laps to go, let alone, 5 laps to go.
Yeah, I mean, he started third place. Mercedes were kind of off the pace all weekend. And, he was still behind the Ferraris after the first few corners. The Mercedes were even behind the McLarens after the first few corners. Hamilton managed to pull it out of the bag, managed to get the win. Sebastian Vettel second, Valtteri Bottas third. So the championship battle in the Drivers' Championship still goes on. But realistically, Alex, it's looking very likely that Hamilton will claim his 6th world title in COTA next week.
Yeah, it's looking that way. I mean, the talk was that he was going to claim it in Mexico. Obviously, he needed to finish 14 points ahead of Bottas, which it was possible but unlikely because, as Lewis pointed out in the press conference, he hadn't finished more than 14 points higher than Bottas in any of the previous races. But I agree with Owain. I don't think I would have backed Lewis for the win in Mexico, to be honest. I thought the Ferrari would be too strong down the straight, especially with Leclerc inheriting pole position after Verstappen's grid penalty. But it was another masterclass really from Lewis with his tyre management, and it paid off. The championship battle is still on, if you like. He only needs 4 points, which it's looking highly likely that he will claim it in Austin. If he doesn't, I'll be very surprised. But it was just a great demonstration of why Lewis is where he is.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I remember last year in Mexico, some Ferrari mechanics were praising Hamilton, saying that, this guy has just not put a wheel wrong this year. And again, arguably in this race anyway, Louis had some contact with Verstappen, obviously, but not really making any mistakes, just hanging it out there on the hard tyres. And the strategy works. He was never really threatened, even towards the end, by Vettel.
No, we were expecting this epic 4-way battle for the win, but it wasn't to be. Lewis, apart from that sort of minor error with Verstappen, he was absolutely flawless. I don't think he could have done much better. I think it just was a phenomenal drive. And, we have praised Mercedes a lot this year with their tyre management, and what looked like it was going to be a superior 2-stop strategy, they've managed to beat that, but they're just by going long.
Yeah, the one-stop strategy absolutely doing wonders for Mercedes and for Red Bull as well with Max Verstappen. We'll get into his race. It was a very eventful weekend for Verstappen, fair to say. But yeah, I mean, would you go along with that as well, Owain? Hamilton not really putting much of a real wheel wrong. I mean, he had an incident with Verstappen off the line, really.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, through the first couple of corners, him and Verstappen were sort of wheel-wagging a bit. I think that's it as far as it's concerned. It's a first-lap incident, really. It's not like they were out for each other. And after that, he just got his head down as he was told, and he managed to pull through. I think he was helped by the traffic at times towards the end, but still, that those sorts of things helped him out, and obviously he's managed to take the win.
Yeah, he who dares wins, and Hamilton and Mercedes dared and won the race in the end. But what wasn't without some complaining again on the radio from Hamilton, Alex. And someone said on Twitter, a few people were saying on Twitter, that Hamilton should really have more faith in his team, the team that has helped him win 5 of his 6 world championships. It seems a bit disrespectful in a way for him to go off in the way he does on the radio. But I guess that's just the passion he has, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, team radio is obviously there for all to hear, and we've seen Lewis do it before. I mean, if you remember the race that he had in Monaco when he was claiming that the strategy wasn't right, and yet he still hung on and won it. It was very much the same in Mexico. Of course, his engineer Pete Bonington was absent this weekend, so that might have played on his mind a little bit. But I agree with you, George. I think that does show his passion. It's obviously he's determined to win. Does he show enough? I'm sure he shows enough faith in his team. I think it's just the heat of the moment type thing at the time, and obviously it paid off handsomely.
Did indeed in the end. Strategy not paying off for Ferrari again. I mean, they had a 1-2 after the qualifying penalties were applied. This is the thing with Ferrari, Lou, and we've said it so many times now. They have the fastest car on the grid, but they just don't seem to be converting it into wins. I mean, obviously this year's championship is gone, but they have to improve. They have to cut out these mistakes if they have any chance of winning either a championship next year.
Yeah, it's a sort of a simple. There are three things certain in life, death, taxes, and Ferrari screwing up strategy. It's gonna. I mean, I would say when it came to Leclerc, it was incredibly unlucky. I think Ferrari had done everything right up until the point it was just an error with his pit stop, which cost him. I think he would have, that lost him 4 seconds. It's a huge margin. But even then, he would have maybe come out ahead of Bottas, but probably still behind his teammate. But Ferrari team orders probably would have sorted that, so he could have gone on to maybe challenge Lewis. But I think Seb's strategy wasn't the best either, and I think Mercedes just do what they do best with their strategy superiority, the sort of general tyre wear superiority as well.
Yeah, and let's mention Valtteri Bottas as well. I think it's only right to. I mean, obviously he's not going to be too happy with this weekend, but at the end of the day, he went from 6th to 3rd around a track that he really struggled around last year away. I mean, if you take this race in isolation, it was a decent drive by the Finn, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's converted what wouldn't you'd have saw it. You'd have thought sort of Q3 on Saturday. Well, that's a recovery drive at that point. I was expecting him to start from the back of the grid. With the way he went in, obviously, Mercedes managed to patch him up in a way that didn't bring them any penalties. So, him going in maybe a car that you'd be somewhat suspect of because, obviously it's been rebuilt overnight, but it's obviously been rebuilt fine because he managed to actually, push in the race and actually was threatening Vettel at times.
Yeah, towards the end, he was really catching Vettel. They were predicting a battle between the two. It never quite materialised in the end. Vettel picked up the pace and tried to challenge Hamilton. Now, Charles Leclerc, the pole man, he finished in 4th place in the end. But yeah, so Alex Albon, now he in the early stages was a decent 3rd place. Was keeping it with the Ferraris pretty decently, and I think he deserves some credit for this race. I think it looked for a time that he could have got his first podium, Louis.
Yeah, I was when he was sat in Peter Howson Kind was a great start, and then I honestly believed he could sort of materialise it. The Red Bull did look like it had good race pace through this weekend. We were expecting it to do well, and I think it's a shame that he wasn't able to get that podium in the end. But the Ferraris and the Mercedes were just that little bit quicker than both Red Bulls today.
Yeah, just too much pace in the end, unfortunately. Hopefully you can hear us now, Alex. What I was going to ask about Charles Leclerc was that Louis was saying that Ferrari didn't really put a foot wrong with the strategy. It seemed like they were doing the right thing for Leclerc. But what do you think? Do you think it was a bit of a missed opportunity for him? Because at the end of the day, he did start in first and lead the early stages of the race.
I think it's really we're getting too used to this season about Ferrari not getting the right strategy. I mean, Leclerc, he was extremely unlucky to lose if we go all the way back to the season starting in Bahrain round 2. And this time, Ferrari, this was a race that Ferrari should have won. They had the fastest car, which really helps at Mexico because DRS gains a bigger effect with the air being so thin in Mexico going down the home straight. They had a front row, but again it went wrong for them, and as we saw in the pit stop, totally went wrong for Leclerc. It was just a shame because that's another race that Ferrari perhaps should have won and they haven't done.
Yeah, quite a few pit stop errors in this race. I mean, I don't know if it's the thin air in Mexico City, but Lando Norris and Giovinazzi all having pit stop blunders, costing Leclerc quite a lot of time in that race in the end. Could at least challenge Bottas to third place if it wasn't for that, but there we go, it happens. Now, we mentioned Charles Leclerc. He was the official pole sitter, but the man who actually got first in qualifying was Max Verstappen. And you felt after his penalty, and we'll get into that, you felt after his penalty he would have been fired up at the start of the race. But after his puncture, Louis, he would have been even more fired up. He went on an absolute rampage after that, didn't he?
Well, you have to. It's like I think, Max is he's young, he's a hungry driver. He wants to, he wants to be winning these races. I think this race was definitely within reach for him today. Despite his penalty, he did get quite a good start. I think most of the top six got a good start, and he was just a few unfortunate errors. I mean, it was a great sort of overtake that he did on Valtteri Bottas. I think we don't really see many overtakes in the stadium section. I think it was a great spectacle to see him go for it, but in the end, it was the thing that cost him. But it's a great recovery drive from being absolutely plumb last. Having to do almost an entire lap with a puncture to then come back and finish P6 is incredible. Yeah,
incredible drive by him, incredible pace. Got pole position as well. He won the last two races here in Mexico as well. Before this is definitely good around this track. But Owain, very much showing, and it's his fifth season. No, it's his fifth season in Formula One. But showing very much rookie errors this weekend with the penalty in qualifying. He didn't really give the stewards much of a choice but to give him a penalty after his comments in the press conference.
Yeah, I mean, it's the sort of thing where you've got to learn to close your mouth. He might have been able to play the, he might have been able to play the, I just didn't know, it happened a bit too quickly for me to know what was happening card if he hadn't said that. And also, it's the sort of thing where if you gain a faster lap time on a lap where there's yellow flags, it just doesn't look good for your case at all. So I think he's unlucky to get he's not really unlucky to get the penalty. He should have got the penalty. It's just one of those things that he didn't need to. They're on for an easy first place because no one else could beat them at that point. Yeah, so not even easy pole position. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean he had the pole at that point. He didn't have to improve his lap time. He already had it. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, of course. You never know what's going to happen. But obviously, with that crash, no one was going to improve. And I think, and we've mentioned about Hamilton with his passion on the radio, complaining his thing. I think this is just Verstappen, isn't it? He's one of those drivers. He's absolutely solely focused, like Schumacher was, like Senna was. He's just absolutely tunnel vision and trying to go as fast as possible, Alex. And I think that is what cost him. He's just that dedicated to win and get pole position that he just didn't care. He's just like, right, I know what that car's doing. I'm fine. I'm going to pass him. It's not a problem. He's well out of the way. Whatever happens is going to happen, but I'm just going to go as fast as I possibly can.
Well, he is dedicated. That's for sure. But it's as you pointed out. I mean, this is Max Verstappen's fifth season now. He's got over 100 Grand Prix now, and he's still showing these signs of immaturity. I know he's still young, but we can't use that as an excuse anymore. It's what in qualifying it was a bit ridiculous, to be honest. It was on provisional pole. The Bottas accident happened right before him. He could have easily slowed down, and we wouldn't be talking about this now if he had done. Instead, he just went flat out through it. And then his comments in the press conference. What was all that about? I just thought that was a bit silly to do. I know there's the argument now we need personalities in Formula One. I completely get that. I mean, my personal opinion is we do. I think you've obviously got. I think we know Vettel likes to shoot his mouth off occasionally, but there's a fine line between personalities and silliness. And I think Max let himself down this weekend. What he did in the race, that overtaking maneuver on Bottas in the stadium section was phenomenal. I thought I don't remember ever seeing one there, to be honest, since Mexico returned to the calendar. But he could have won this race for the third time on the row, I think, if he'd started from pole.
Would you go along with that, Louis? Do you think it would have been I personally think it would have been a relatively comfortable win for him if he just kept his pole and just kept the lead in the first lap?
Yeah, I definitely think it would have been a relatively straightforward win for Max. You know, he's a very good driver and shouldn't be making just such, we said rookie errors. Just he shouldn't be doing that. And you know, he just needs to. You know, we thought we'd got over all this. You know, he had a tremendous period where he was really showing how much he's matured, and he was getting the race wins without, you know, having those sort of really scrappy moments. But you know, it's a shame that we've had to see this from Max this weekend. But you know, hopefully this is just a one-off again, and he'll come back, and we'll see some better driving and some better driving standards from Max.
Yeah, well, I mean, Brazil was the scene of an embarrassing incident for Verstappen last year when he was leading. Hopefully he doesn't repeat that again, but he's definitely going to be fired up going into USA and Brazil and UAE as well for the rest of the season. Now, best of the rest this weekend, the home hero, the big enchilada himself, Sergio Perez. I think, honestly, brilliant drive by him to get best of the rest, ahead of the Renaults, ahead of the McLarens. I mean, the crowd definitely helped him as well, Owain. I think he just really showed why, you know, he's a driver that deserves potentially a better seat in Formula One.
Oh, he absolutely deserves a better seat. It's unfortunate that his tenure at McLaren didn't work so well, because he's shown that he has, particularly this weekend, where obviously tyre deg is very, very important in Mexico because of the track being how it is. And he's very, very good at not ruining his tyres. You know, back when he started with Sauber, you know, he was excellent at it in the first race of the season, I remember. So he's managed to maintain that throughout his entire career, and it's got him a 7th place, which is very, very good. I mean, obviously he had the crowd behind him, I think, when he overtook, I believe, Gasly. You know, you heard the roar from the crowd, and it was absolutely huge. So that would have definitely helped, and it's probably disheartening to anyone that had him filling their mirrors, but he's done a stellar job there, to be fair.
Yeah, brilliant. And you can't ask for any more than that from him. I mean, he was only 5 seconds behind Verstappen in the end. That's a brilliant drive by him. Another brilliant drive as well by Daniel Ricciardo of Renault, and hopefully this time, Alex, it'll count.
Well, that's true. I mean, Renault haven't exactly been the luckiest team in the world, have they, in the last month? They were disqualified from Japan, and Ricciardo, was it Singapore, I believe? It was disqualified from, I might be wrong. But there was another, I think he had 2 disqualifications in 3 races, didn't he? But I think Ricciardo needs all the points he can get at the moment, because it's fair to say the move from Renault, I don't think has been the move from Red Bull, to Renault has not turned out as he imagined it would do. I think he expected it to be tough, but not this tough. He had the battle with Perez and he came off second best, but I think Ricciardo will just be glad to get some points on the board at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's what Renault really needed. They needed a solid drive after having their issues with the whole brake system and everything. I mean, for those that don't know, Louis, Renault were retrospectively disqualified from Japan, and because of the braking system they were using there, some people are questioning their results for the entire season before this as well. I mean, I don't know if they're being investigated still, but you know, this is potential to be absolutely disastrous for Renault, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's quite damning. I read somewhere that even Romain Grosjean said that they were using this system back when he was driving Renault.
Just to stir the pot there.
Yeah, it's not like he's trying to get Renault demoted or anything, so has to get another place in the Constructors' Championship. I'm just being cynic, of course.
But what advantages did they gain from that, though? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
I mean, Haas wouldn't gain very much.
No, Renault probably still have taken.
About $20 or $30 million. That's about it.
Yeah.
No, but it's really poor thing to have come up for Renault. But this has been basically the end of their charge for 4th place in the constructors. They're now in a really tight battle with Toro Rosso for that sort of 5th spot now. And if they're facing more disqualifications in more races, they're going to have to try and get as many legal points as possible to stop them, you know, maybe even finishing below the Haas.
Yeah, and it's not exactly unprecedented for this to happen as well. I mean, you go back through the history of F1, Tyrrell had their results wiped in '84 for water dampening or something like that, something to do with the brakes as well. I mean, basically what people are, well, what they've been proven now in Japan anyway, is that Racing Point complained about Renault having brakes that basically set their own brake bias, which gives the drivers a huge advantage in the braking zones. It sets on the weight and the time and the distance around the track, etc., because of that. So basically, you can't have that. It's illegal. It's a driver raid. It's almost like ABS. It's not quite ABS, but it's getting towards that sort of thing, basically. So that's what they've been found guilty of. And also, if that was on the car for the other racers, they'll be thrown out. But it's just whether they can be proven. And yeah, obviously, Grosjean claiming that Lotus, the team that became Renault, the Enstone team, also had that system in 2015. But I'm not sure I believe that, to be honest with you. I don't. I think I'm going to be devil's advocate with that. I think it's possibly. I think it's possibly him trying to get, Haas another place, and the constructors get him up from 9th to 8th. So it's not as disastrous of a season for them as it could be. So yeah, it's a complicated one with Renault for sure. But Ricciardo hopefully should have his 8th place confirmed. 9th place, and now I think normally the quote of the weekend does go to Kimi Räikkönen. I'm going to give it to Helmut Marko this weekend because Pierre Gasly arrived in Mexico with a bout of flu, and there were some people doubting whether he'd actually race this weekend. And in response, Helmut Marko just said, "If we have to, we'll have to send him out there with a diaper in the car to qualify," which is a picture I don't really want to describe any more than that. But nevertheless, despite his illness, Pierre Gasly, a very respectable 9th on what was a great weekend for Toro Rosso in terms of pace. Both cars in Q3 away.
Yeah, they were very, very quick. We said it before, but the Honda is no longer the laughing stock of the grid.
That's
and to be honest, well, yeah, they managed to do quite a lot with it. Obviously, it's dominated by a straight at Mexico, but the Toro Rosso has always been quite good when it comes to actual how easy that car is to drive. That's a race-winning team. And I'm not surprised to see them up there, really.
Yeah, Pierre Gasly pulling out arguably another performance better than what he did in the Red Bull. He's doing a very good job in that Toro Rosso since being demoted to the junior team, hasn't he, Alex?
He has. It must have come as a horrible blow to him being dropped from Red Bull, because I had such high hopes for him at the start of the season, because he had a relatively good season last year, and I thought that he could maybe take the fight to Max Verstappen. Unfortunately, that didn't quite work out. But it's nothing similar to what Kvyat's done as well this season. But both of them have had their troubles with Red Bull in the past. But this season, Kvyat's done very well for Toro Rosso, and Gasly, since his return, has been, as you say, probably better now than he was in the first half of the season with Red Bull. It was a great performance from Gasly in the race in Mexico. Kvyat was running well until his little contretemps with Hülkenberg at the end. So it's a relatively happy camp at Toro Rosso at the moment.
Yeah, definitely.
Toro Rosso much longer though.
Yeah, definitely a good weekend for Toro Rosso. Kvyat will be kicking himself though, because he challenged Hülkenberg for, I believe, what was at the time 9th place, stuck it up the inside, tactical move, last corner of the last lap. You could argue he had to go for it to try and get the place, but ended up colliding with Hülkenberg and getting a penalty for his measure, which meant that he finished up 11th, Louis. It was, I guess it's one of the things, isn't it? It's a tactical gamble in a way, but no surprise at all. He ended up with a 10-second penalty.
No, not at all. It was ambitious but rubbish. It was really, really. I mean, we always want, like so many times we've seen in the past in Formula One, drivers, not making that move on that last lap, but credit for him for going for it. But I think he knew that it wasn't going to work. He was that little bit too far back. He only really hit sort of the very rear of Hülkenberg, but it really shows how far back he was. I mean, Hülkenberg, he was having a great race. He was, going to get even more points for Renault, and ended up crossing the line with no rear wing.
Yeah, it's a funny sight, isn't it? It's one of the things where you just think to yourself, "Oh, well, the stewards are scrutineer. Oh, you've not got a rear wing. What the hell? You're breaking regulations. Disqualify him."
don't want to see an F1 car with no rear wing going down that straight, I'll be honest.
Low drag setup. It's a new DRS, isn't it? So there you go. Sorry, I'll stop the jokes now. So yeah, Hulkenberg in the end finished 10th with no rear wing, but decent drive by him as well for that. Kvyat 11th, just outside the point. Lance Stroll 12th, not really anywhere to be fair. Racing Point not the best car around there. Miles off his teammate as usual. But as we always say, I'm pretty sure his seat is safe for next year. But yeah, let's get on to the McLarens because they were 7th and 8th in qualifying, Alex. Had very high hopes from this race, but absolutely failed to deliver.
Well, they were terrible on the hard tyres, weren't they? McLaren were really up there at the start when Sainz was really up there, and Norris had got ahead of Verstappen after Hamilton and Verstappen's collision at the start. Norris again. I mean, he's had such bad luck this season. I just remember at Spa when he blew up with 1 lap to go. Not a very good haul of points for him, and he could have probably broken into the single-digit points. I think maybe Mexico had things gone right for him. Sainz, I mean, he's my driver of the year so far. Actually, Sainz. I think what he's done in that McLaren to be best of the rest on such high occasions. But it wasn't to be for them this weekend. The tyres just didn't suit them. You have your good days and bad days, but I think McLaren is still, considering where they were 12 months ago, they've had a much better season this season. I think the future's bright for them.
Yeah, and they're in a comfortable 4th place, helped by obviously the disqualification of Renault in Japan, but it was relatively comfortable anyway, despite Sainz struggling to get his hard on. There you go. Just after they put I had to do it, all right. I had to do it. Anyway.
How long did it take to think of that one?
About 30 seconds. I literally planned that one this morning. I was just thinking of material for the show while I was on the bus.
I think the McLaren mechanic was struggling to get the hard on more than.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was so weird though. McLaren were genuinely good on the soft tyre. They literally overtook. I think both Mercedes. I think they were running 4th and 5th in the first few laps. But as soon as they got the hard tyres on, Sainz just dropped like a stone. He dropped like an absolute lead balloon. He was just being overtaken left, right, and centre. I'm surprised he finished as high as 13th, to be honest. Just couldn't eat them up. Move on to the next race. Hopefully better for McLaren.
Well, to be fair, I just want to say credit to Norris for stopping at the end of the pit lane. You know, I guess he should have stopped earlier than that. Obviously, because they had to push him all the way back. You know, I was wondering if they had sort of a wheel gun or something that they could just take down. But credit to actually have the presence of mind to not just go straight out of the pits like I've seen a lot of drivers do, and actually stop before the pit lane line, so that you had a chance.
Yeah, and he couldn't stop earlier because he would have blocked another team's garage.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
But yeah, no, fair play to him. A lot of drivers would have just kept on going and gone out of the pit lane. He had the presence of mind to stop. Very good head on that young man's shoulders. I think he's still 19 years old, which just makes you feel very old.
Why would you do this?
These damn kids, 1999 born. I'm not going to say too much because Louis is actually younger than Lando Norris.
I'm 19.
Yeah, I know. You were born in the year 2000. I remember that year.
Where's your Valentino Rossi merch?
That's making me feel ancient now, to be honest.
I'll have to buy that bucket hat.
The less said, the better, I think, for Alex's sake. But yeah, so let's go through the other drivers who finished. Antonio Giovinazzi finished 14th in Alfa Romeo. Alfa Romeo didn't really have the pace this week, because they haven't for much of the second half of the season. The Haas drivers, absolutely nowhere. They almost got beaten by Russell in qualifying. 15th for Kevin Magnussen, 17th for Romain Grosjean. Grosjean 2 laps down on the lead, as was Magnussen for that matter. And the other 2 finishers were the Williams. Russell actually beating Romain Grosjean. Fair play to Russell. He's really trying his best in that car. I think he's doing an admirable job, to be honest, with absolutely shocking machinery at his disposal. Robert Kubica, Mikhail's prediction of Kubica finishing only 1 lap down was just a bit off.
That was mine.
Down the end.
Mine.
But yeah, and the 2 drivers didn't finish. Kimi Räikkönen, he fired after 58 laps with overheating, and Lando Norris withdrew after his pit stop blunder. He was miles off the pace after that. So, lads, moving ahead to Mexico, we had a unanimous decision when it came to Hamilton not winning the title in Mexico. I think this time we'll have a full house saying that he will win the title in the USA. What do you think, Owain?
I just can't see him not winning it, really. To be honest, he seems to have that little bit of an edge on Bottas that is sort of equates to a place or two. So, I can't see him not getting it in Circuit of the Americas, especially when he goes so well there.
Yeah, he's got an incredible record around COTA. I think he's won, if I can do my maths very quickly, I think he's won 5 out of 7 races there in the USA. And he also won in 2007 in Indianapolis as well. So it's fair to say he does quite well in the States. But yeah, he needs a 52-point lead going into Brazil, because the fastest lap point. Currently, he has a 74-point lead. So he almost very nearly won it in Mexico, actually. Very close in the end. Yeah, so realistically, Hamilton would have to retire. And, I just don't really see that happening. Do you, Alex? I mean, Mercedes have won the Constructors' Championship. If they have to, they can even turn the engine down a little bit. That car's been absolutely bulletproof this year.
Well, I think he's a champion in all but name for 2019. I mean, he hasn't had a technical failure since Austria last year. You could argue they're probably due a failure, but I don't see that happening. And for Hamilton, for his own personal satisfaction, we know how much of a fan of the United States of America he is. For him to win it in Austin like he did in 2015, it would just be perfect for him, I think.
Yeah, it's looking pretty certain, isn't it, Louis, that Hamilton will just become just the second man in history to win 6 Formula One world titles.
Yeah, it's an incredible achievement. You talk about, he's in the right car, but, he's having to beat his teammate, week in, week out, even those difficult years against Nico Rosberg. He's done a great job, and he thoroughly deserves a championship this year, which he will wrap up in America. I think something catastrophic it will have to happen for that not to be the case.
Yeah, and it's not even going to be a case of crazy weather or anything like that. I did say it was going to rain all weekend in Mexico. That didn't quite happen. But it's not.
I mean, it did just after every session.
Yeah, typical F1, isn't it? It just misses the session. But it's not predicted to rain in Texas all weekend, so it's going to be dry. It's going to be relatively cool for that part of the world, but yeah, it's going to be dry. But if we had to it's kind of hard to preview. I mean, I think COTA in some ways is quite similar to Mexico in terms of downforce and stuff. So it should be pretty close between the top 3 teams. But who's got the edge for you, Owain? I mean, Ferrari had the pace for this second half of the season. You can see them continuing that into Austin.
I think they'll have outright pace. I don't think that's up for debate, really. Obviously, there's quite long straights, which should give them an edge. But the sort of the start of the first sector and the last sector, I think will benefit and favour Red Bull and Mercedes significantly. And I think the most complete package is probably the Mercedes. I've said that before. I've been wrong, but. My thoughts are that it's probably the best package there, should they get everything right.
Yeah, I think I can see that as well, because they are the best package of the team. They always get the results at the end of the day, even though they might not have the fastest car, Alex, around COTA. You'd be very brave to bet against them getting at least a couple of cars on the podium.
You would be, because Mercedes is certainly the most consistent package. It seems to go very well on all circuits, whereas Ferrari have shown that they've had the pace on some circuits and not at others. I just want to go back to one thing that Louis pointed out about Hamilton having the best package and the best car. It's unfair when people say that, though, and they use that argument against them. I mean, you look back at when Sebastian Vettel was winning the title with Red Bull, he had the best car. I think Schumacher, he had the best car. Senna had the best car. You've got to drive it. And I think as a driver, you earn the right to be in the best car. It depends how talented you are. Clearly Lewis has shown that he has that. But just going back to your question, I think you'd be a brave man to bet against Mercedes. I wouldn't be surprised if Ferrari got the edge of them in qualifying, but Mercedes would beat them in a race.
Yeah, and the strategy actually last year worked very well for Kimi Räikkönen when he was driving Ferrari. It seems such a long time ago, doesn't it? But it was only last year that he won what's probably going to be his last F1 race that he actually wins in the sport. But yeah, it should be pretty close between the top 3 teams. But yeah, you are right, Alex. I mean, it's one of them things, isn't it? The best drivers do find their way to the best cars. The cream always rises to the top. It's very rare that a driver wins the championship and he's not in the best car. I mean, like Prost in '86 and
I think Alonso in 2005, I would say, is probably the most recent one.
yeah, you could argue Hamilton 2008, but
Possibly,
McLaren was, very similar to Ferrari for reasons that we all know. Spygate reference there. If you don't know what that is, kids, look it up. It's a very interesting time 10 years ago. McLaren and Ferrari duking it out and copying each other's cars.
10? It's more like 11.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. But yeah, so let's get into the predictions for COTA then. I'll go first. I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc for the win. What are you saying, Owain? What are you laughing?
Does it need to be said?
Go on then, you're going to go for Lewis. All right, okay.
No, I'm going to go for Bottas. I'll mix it up. I'll be happy to be wrong on this one.
Alex, who are you going for?
I think nearly every single prediction I make turns out to be wrong, but I think I'm going to go Bottas for the victory, but Hamilton will clinch the title.
Fair enough. Louis?
I'm going to go different. I'm going to go Sebastian Vettel.
Sebastian Vettel.
I don't see it. It's not.
I didn't see Kimi winning it last year, and somehow he did.
Yeah. Well, you never know. It's a track that can surprise us. You never know. The Red Bulls could be up there too, Verstappen did pretty well there last year as well.
I think it really depends on the weather as well. Because if you remember last year, I think what really played a part in Kimi winning it was the fact that it had rained so hard in Friday practice that nobody really got any running in. So when it came to qualifying, not many of the teams knew the right setup for the cars, and Ferrari somehow got it right with the strategy. I think had it been dry all weekend,
how times have changed.
Well, it feels quite rare to say that Ferrari actually got it right, didn't they? But that was really. I think had it been dry all weekend, I don't think Kimi would have won it. But it was probably great for Formula One that he did. Because as you pointed out, George, it will probably be his last victory unless there's an absolutely bonkers race, either in the last few races or we get one next year.
Well, you never know. The Alfa Romeo could develop a lot in the winter, like F1 2019, won't it? But yeah, so podium. I'm gonna say Hamilton for second, and obviously that'll make him clinch the championship. Third place, let's go Verstappen. I'm gonna go Max Verstappen. Owain, who are your other two podium sitters?
Leclerc then Hamilton probably.
Okay. Alex?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Bottas, Hamilton, Verstappen.
Fair enough. Louis?
I'm going to go Hamilton, then Bottas.
All right. Now then, trying to think of a bold prediction, something a bit crazy. Let's look at this. You know what? Toros had a really good weekend in Mexico. I'm going to go a bit bonkers here. I'm going to say Pierre Gasly for best of the rest. Owain, what's your bold prediction?
Ferrari not to mess up a strategy.
Oh, don't be stupid. That's not going to happen.
That's so bold.
That's too unrealistic. You might as well go for Williams for the win at that point. Like,
I mean, I'll do it.
Alex, what's your bold prediction?
Has to get a point in their home Grand Prix.
Their home race, I keep forgetting. Yeah.
That is a solid ninth best car on the grid at this point. Let's be real.
Yeah.
It's been a disaster for them this season. It really has.
Yeah. They just want to write it off. There's a few teams just want this year to end in terms like Williams, Haas.
I mean, how can you get to the end of the summer break and still have an Australia spec front wing that's better than anything you've anything else that you've introduced subsequently? Like, get some tracing paper, genuinely copy the Ferrari. It will be better.
Well, that's what Haas used to do, and they probably stopped doing that. That's been the problem, really, hasn't it? Like, they used to borrow, 80% of the parts from Ferrari.
Well, yeah, you just wait the following year, and it's be like, oh, it's last year's Ferrari.
Yeah, just like McLaren did in the late 2000s. Louis, you have plenty of time to think about this one. What's your prediction?
I was gonna say both McLarens finish outside the top 10. I don't.
Ooh, that's a good one. That.
Yeah, well, you just done a layback.
I think Mexico was a one-off, but you never know. That could happen, especially if the Renault engines continue their amazing reliability this season.
You've just jinxed it.
we were all thinking of who's going to score points, and Louis thought who's not going to score points.
He's going outside the box, isn't he?
I mean, my
my
one for Mexico was the Williams to only be lapped once.
Unfortunately, they were lapped twice. You know, I feel like it's a bold prediction. So I'm pretty sure Bottas was lapped twice in Mexico last year. He was driving the Mercedes, but yeah. So yeah, looks like Hamilton will claim his sixth title next week in the USA. But you never know. You never know. Something crazy could happen, but it could be nice to we're doubting that, especially with our predictions that we just gave. But we're not exactly known for being absolutely on the spot with our bold calls. So.
Well, we're clearly not in the Drive to Survive script writing room, are we?
Oh man, yeah. So yes, thank you for joining us, everybody who's listening. We're available on Spotify. We're available on YouTube. Make sure to like the Facebook page of F1 Chronicle and follow them on Twitter as well at F1 Chronicle. We're also on Omni Studio, Apple Podcasts. Where else are we on? We've got a Reddit as well if you want to suggest. If you want to suggest things to us. If you don't like my beard, it's going next episode. You'll see me with a mustache because it's November. But yes, thank you lads for joining us, and thank you Alex as well for joining the first time. I think it's fair to say you did pretty well today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Apart from the camera cutting out.
I apologise for the rubbish connection.
It's fine, mate. I was on potato speed internet until very recently.
Are we just not going to mention that the racing car on the podium?
Oh yeah, all right. You know what? That was actually epic. That was incredible.
I think Formula One needs to be doing significantly more of that.
Yeah, that was very Hollywood for Mexico, wasn't it? That was incredible. Like,
I'm not sure if Selfie Guy has got much of a future though. Not if Vettel's on the podium.
yeah,
what were they thinking with the mariachi race suit, dude?
I don't know. He was like sticking a bloody sombrero, weren't he? It was so weird.
The Stig's Mexican cousin.
God, yeah, no, that was weird. That I didn't like that one. He looked cool, but yeah, when he did that, I was a bit like, what the heck was going on here?
Mexico like to think outside the box. I remember they had that DJ a couple of years ago. Kimmy was having none of it.
I like that they borrowed an idea from. I think I've seen it before on the Nürburgring 24 Hours. But you know, I really liked that of lifting the car.
Yeah, for those who haven't seen it, do look it up. It is something else. I've never seen it before in F1. I think it's incredible.
Well, I just want to add, because we're going to Austin this weekend. Does anyone remember a couple of years ago when they had Michael Buffer announcing all the drivers?
I absolutely do. It's the worst thing they've ever done.
That was woeful.
Like that was that when Liberty had just taken over?
Yeah.
Yes.
And we were all thinking, oh no, we don't want this. Take us back to Bernie.
Actually announced Danny Kvyat as the torpedo as well. I just couldn't believe.
What would you prefer? Would you prefer Heineken stars or boxing ring announcers?
Heineken stars.
Heineken stars because they don't make a noise. They just ignore them.
The race light.
You can't ignore them when they're over the track.
That's true. But you definitely can't avoid the undefeated champion of the world 5 times running. It's just. It had potential. It had potential, but it just massively hit the mark. Missed the mark. Sorry.
The thing is, in boxing, you're only going to be announcing 2 fighters entering, but when you're announcing 20 drivers arriving, it just goes on too long.
Oh man! To be honest with you, a small part of me would like to see that come back, just because it's so hilariously bad, but. I hope it never comes back as well. I think they've learned the lesson with that now.
So. No, they just stick to the national anthem and that's it.
Yeah. Oh, man. But yeah, no, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for watching the podcast as well. Thank you, lads, for joining us. We'll be back in a week's time to potentially review Hamilton's triumphant season, his 6th Formula 1 World Championship, where only the great Michael Schumacher will stand above him in that regard. Hope it's a good race this weekend in Austin. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Right.